should we segue nicely into the football news of the
Yes, of
week?
course. I am totally fine with that. So we can start with. I mean, we've been talking about Messi a hell of a lot. There's
Mhm.
been a few breaking news. There's you know what social media is like when it comes to football and other sports. There's always the speculation of if a player says something, every pundit in the world is going to make any sort of story about them to kind of like twist things or whatsoever. So, the biggest speculation was Messi going to Man City because Man City would be like the only Premiership team to be able to afford his wages, plus reuniting with Pep. And you know that it's been shown now within the Sky Sports breaking news that Messi is now chosen to in fact stay at Barcelona. So what would we think about that, Rob? What was the whole reason of like saying he wants to leave Barcelona and then instantly saying, "Oh, I'm not staying"? Is there something at play here? Is it some sort of power play? What do we think?
Well, well, you know what? I did say a few weeks ago, I told you it was an empty threat, and I'm glad that I've been proved right, you know?
Yeah,
He just he is an institution of Barcelona, and in my eyes, he determines the ingoings and outgoings of that club.
I just I
He's a
love.
lot more powerful than people give him credit for,
Mhm.
because he predated pretty much most of the backroom staff, definitely the manager who's just come in, Koeman. He's predated a lot of his teammates. He is Barcelona.
Mm.
You know, no matter what his father, how much his father was trying to big up how dramatized the situation is, and he really, really wants to go to the Premier League. You know, yeah. So he is saying, I've got the article open. He's saying, I'm now staying because the president told me that the only way I could leave was by paying the 700 million release clause, which is impossible.
There's a
So
bit of a locker there.
I guess he is kind of staying under duress,
Mm.
but at the same time, I think he still has a love for that club.
Oh yeah, of course. I think it's hard to be part of a club and just see it decline for years and years, because that's essentially what Barcelona has resulted to. You saw it. You saw it last year, against Liverpool, and now you've seen it against Bayern Munich. It's I don't know the background of what's going on during training or what the politics at play are, but it seems to me like Koeman wants to revitalize the club, but in an arguably um, disagreeable way to a lot of people. But
Mm.
you see a lot of the players that have been blamed for a lot of Barcelona's recent defeats. A lot of it is down to defenders like Jordi Alba. That's been a name that's cropped up. Because some players like Ter Stegen, they get praised a lot, and you obviously Messi being the best player in the world, you can't. Well, arguably the best player in the world next to Ronaldo. It's hard to fault him for anything, and that's Suarez. Like Suarez is getting on a bit, but is he still like I don't know if he's still at his peak, but he's still at a level which he can still play very well. And players like Rakitic who are being offloaded now as well. So the other question is where do they go, and who do Barcelona bring in to kind of kind of keep
Shore everything up. Yeah.
kind of keep Messi happy as well, I suppose.
Well, you know what? It's just interesting that his release clause was 700 million.
Mm,
Because that is essentially akin to the amount of debt that Barcelona is in at the moment,
mm. And
which is 700 million. So you kind of have to kind of gauge what if Messi would rather like sync with the club that made him or go somewhere else to help them out.
yeah, I mean I suppose they want to rely on Messi to get income from future matches. I suppose because the amount of payouts you get from Champions League and all that kind of stuff would probably help the club in a greater way. So it's about that long-term solution versus that short-term one. How can they guarantee if they sell off Messi, um, how is the team going to revitalize? It's a big risk, I suppose, to even for that kind of money to get rid of Messi, because he's been such an iconic player for the team. So I think you kind of have to build around him if you want to keep the club staying at a truly competitive level.
Well, he is a monolithic figure in the world of football, Messi. You know, he will always sell shirts. He will always if he advertises a product, that product will always sell in its
Hmm.
tens of thousands of millions, you know. So he's got no qualms about being a draw, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, by all
He
means.
he he is the John Cena of football. You
Mm.
know, he's a franchise. He will always sell merchant. Maybe not the John Cena now because John Cena's retired, you know, but uh he is the Roman Reigns of football.
I'd say it's more like the Daniel Bryan, the one just everyone loves and has no question about, and just
Mm,
always has something truly amazing to give every
mm.
time.
Oh no, no, Messi has his detractors, mainly Ronaldo fans.
Uh,
You know, there's particularly if you go on Twitter, there's always like weird cults of personality regarding footballers.
oh,
You
you
know,
wanted to sneak that one in there, didn't you?
what was CM Punk reference?
Yeah.
No. No. In all seriousness, like that, you know, there's weird kind of people out there on social media who, no matter the indiscretion that the player has made,
Yeah.
they will always be like, "Messi, number 1, you know, g goal, golazzo, brilliant," you know, yada, 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 praise, praise, praise. You know, a lot of it comes down to his social media, um, promotion,
Hmm.
you know, and, you know, the real thing I was getting into, the segue oh, just not the cable there, sorry. The real segue I was trying to get into was talking about Özil
Okay.
and, how Özil just he he for as many detractors as he has, and they are in their tens of thousands, you know, me included,
Hmm.
who just do not want him at Arsenal. You'll always get these weird kind of Özil cult members who are kind of like, yeah, but look at all his assists he made in 2014. I'm like, yeah,
That's
that was 6 years ago.
2014. I mean,
Exactly.
you always get contrarians, don't you? That's the weird
Mm,
thing. Like you have it at Tottenham now, with Serge Aurier, because he's been such a liability for the club, for the last year, um, and I think that the big problem with that is he's supposed to be an attacking right back, but then one of the problems I've seen from him is he'll get right up the pitch and then he'll just pass back. Tottenham have been very notorious last season for passing back a lot, and it's one of the reasons why Harry Kane has like shown in his figures that he's gone from like being 75% forward to being like 60% forward and then 60% in the midfield, because he's got to cover that ball, because not enough players are getting up the pitch ready for that. But then when it comes, he's missed a lot of tackles as well. So
mm,
like trying to offload that player, from what I've heard, the biggest contender for buying him is AC Milan, but there's a valuation of 20 million, and AC have only bidded 15 million, which Tottenham have not accepted. I personally think that they're doing that thing because the transfer window is going on for ages. I think they are kind of waiting out until AC Milan go, okay, fine, we'll offer you like more, because that's just the kind of character Daniel Levy is. In that sort of sense, he's a tight bastard, but when he's at the reins of a deal, he gets it done.
I did actually see Daniel Levy. I'm convinced I saw Daniel Levy walking down a street in Soho near where I work.
Yeah, it's weird.
And, he there's a very vampiric quality about him. He kind of Nosferatu looking.
I could
Um,
see that. Yeah,
and, I mean, it makes sense, you know, he sucked the blood and the life out of Tottenham for a good number of years. I mean, he
controversial
got a new
opinion.
stadium and everything. I was actually gonna ask if you've seen, All or Nothing yet.
I have. I've watched the first 3 episodes. It is like a lot of the stuff you have behind the scenes, kind of suspected for a while. Like my old flatmate hated Mourinho with a passion. It absolutely hated him, and I think that's a lot because of like how he was at Man U. But I think Mourinho took a job with players that he just didn't like from the get go. So I think that a lot of that
It's fun.
rubbed off.
It's funny with Mourinho. You know, he. It just so happens that every club he ever manages, he falls out with a player or two.
Yeah,
You know,
and I think it's
it
because of
almost says
his.
something about the man himself rather than
I
the
think,
system that he's working with.
although I think from what I've seen, but the difference between Poch and Mourinho from looking at that documentary is you. Well, Mourinho is more of like tell it how it is. If you want to be upset at what I say, be upset by all means. But Poch is kind of like he waited things out and things like that. And I think the big reason, according to that documentary, was why he got sacked was because even though he brought Tottenham up to this big level. Once they crashed after the Liverpool defeat, he could not bring them back up. He was on a sinking ship, and he just couldn't find any way to recover from it. And I think the new stadium kind of had an effect on it because they're trying to recover that money back. And if they keep losing like this, then how are they going to get that money back from such a huge investment? So I think that was the club's worry.
It's like Arsenal with the Emirates. You know, we weren't competing at the for trophies for years and years, and we were getting the scraps and not forking out that much money for players every single season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, due to the huge crippling financial debt that we were in from building this stadium.
Yeah, and at the moment, I mean, I do get a bit sick on seeing on social media where a lot of the fans of Spurs, a lot of the negative fans are saying, well, why aren't we buying this 50 million player? Look at Chelsea, look what they've done. And I'm like, well, first because they were saying, oh, they've already signed 4 major players. I'm like, well, 2 of those were agreed months in advance, Ziyech and Werner. Now they've gotten Thiago Silva on a free, and that was totally Thiago Silva's choice. He's a free agent; he can go anywhere, and he chose Chelsea. And now they're getting Kai Havertz on board, which I'm frightened.
They've got him.
Oh, they've got him. Yeah.
They got him last night.
Ah, yeah, they did. That's going to be frightening. I think Chelsea are going to be quite a frightening team this season.
Oh yeah, I'm worried about them. I really am. We seem to be picking up the scrap. I mean, we've signed Gabriel in all fairness, which is, I mean, always a good thing. Gabriel, still can't pronounce his last name. Magalhaes.
Yeah.
Hang on, bear with me. I'm just Gabriel. But yeah, he's just another person that will hopefully shore up our leaky defense. It's Magalha with like a little symbol above it. ES.
Okay.
Magalhaes.
I think. Yeah.
Gabriel. I'm just gonna call him Gabriel. He. I don't know. I don't know anything about him, to be fair. He's just another Brazilian that's come in, and that's the Edu influence at the very top of the club, who's our director of football. Used to play for us. He was an invincible, Edu, and now he's our director of football. But he's bringing David Luiz, Willian, Margulies, just Magalhaes. I'm gonna have to get used to the pronunciation of these.
The thing I find with
but that's just the Brazilian influence. So I feel like we're gonna have a lot more Brazilians coming in the future.
I feel like Chelsea are a kind of team that, even though like Real Madrid, and I'll get on to Real Madrid in a bit of a more football news in a second, but in Real Madrid, they like to sign the big money stars and stuff like that, like the people who are going to gain them a lot more traction in the news and things like that, like with Hazard and all those star players, because they won't mind paying a hell of a lot of money for them, as long as they bring them a lot more publicity. I seem to find that with Real Madrid a lot. But Chelsea, they seem to be, we're prepared to spend this much, but we've seen these people's track records and we are more than happy to spend this much. Not to mention that the transfer ban saved them quite a bit of money in that budget, so they just had the power to fork out essentially when their ban was lifted. So yeah, they've gained. I think they've gained a huge boost this season. Also, we've had the internationals come up, and I saw that my own boy Stevie Bergwijn has scored for the Netherlands, so I'm happy about that. Who else? Ryan Sessegnon scored for the under 21s England. So is it tomorrow England have got the game?
Probably. I don't care. I couldn't care less about the Nations League if I'm being honest, mate. It's a glorified friendly tournament,
Yeah.
which is you know, which is what I was crying out for years. In all fairness,
Hmm.
just I I hated international friendlies back in the day when they were still a thing. Mid-season international friendlies. That is
Yeah.
because all it is just players will go off and then they'll get a bad injury,
Hmm.
and in a nothing game.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you
And
mean.
so I guess hats off to them for making it slightly competitive, but no, it's not a draw. The Nations League, no one cares.
Okay. Yeah, I
In
suppose
my in my
I
in
don't
my
know
in
enough
my in my
about it.
opinion, anyway.
It's still pretty fresh though, I suppose, and doesn't it contribute to the Euros in some way as well now? I think because it's formed in 2018, didn't it? This.
I don't know. I don't know whether the top teams in the Nations League get top seeding or I don't know how it works.